Welcome back to another edition of DevHub Live. I am your host, Joe, and I am excited to bring you another great episode of DevHub Live today. We are talking about near intents. We have Alexi from Aurora coming on here to come talk about this. And intents has been a really hot topic in the near ecosystem. We just saw with Zcash, that community just really got to use it and fell in love with kind of that ability to transfer things. You might have tried the Doge swap. There's been all these different swaps that have been happening, things going on. And I feel like while it's really exciting and it's really unique technology, not everybody really understands it. And on top of that, we want to kind of learn how can we utilize this? How can we build on top of this? All that stuff. So I'm very excited today that we have Alexi from Aurora to come on. I don't waste any of the time. We'll get to the news and notes at the end of the show. Let's just jump in. Alexi, thanks for joining today.
Hello. My pleasure being here.
Thanks. So intents, I really want to kind of do this in two parts here. I'd love to talk about the high level of like just the concept around intents, what it's there for, how it's a little bit different than bridging, things like that. And I think it's worth noting that Aurora is known for probably the best bridge in all of crypto with the Rainbow Bridge. And then to go to something like this that is not bridging is really an interesting piece of all of this. So maybe let's start there of like, what are intents?
Sure. I will actually start maybe a bit earlier
Sure.
because intents, it's a very, very abstract word. So it could mean different things to different people. So intents is a way to express what you need, not like how you get it. So that's the idea. But more specifically, it's much easier to talk about just fungible tokens. So it's by far the most common problem we have in the blockchain space. Like, how do you swap token A for token B? And the solution to this problem has been AMM pools. It's a really easy model to understand. You get token A and token B, you put them into the pool, and the smart contract, based on the ratio between these two tokens, it decides what the price should be. Of course, it's not that simple. There's a bunch of, like the exchange rate depends on the volume of your trade. It could be sandwiched by MEV bots. Like there's all kinds of complexity related to this like AMM model. Well, the intents, it's a bit simpler than that. So you just express your desire, like, hey, I would like to change token A for token B. Who can give me like the best way to swap these tokens? And based on the quotes that you received, you can call this mechanism RFQ mechanism. You just publish this intent, and magically you get what you need. But behind the scene, you don't necessarily know how you got the token B. It could have been like some agent behind the scene. It went to some other network, lended some money, swapped it somewhere else, or there was some sort of central exchange bot which counter traded your tokens in a super deep pool on whatever Binance, let's say.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it.
So from there, so let's just keep talking kind of at the higher level here. So as a user, the concept here is simply that, again, I was making my request, I'm making my intent, I'd like to do the swap. And then who's on the actual other side of that?
So it could be multiple people on the other side, and they could be interacting with each other at the same time. So it could be, let's say, let me give you a specific example. Let's say you would like to swap a token A to token C, and there is no agent that is providing the direct A to C swap. Let's say you want to swap, you want to sell Ethereum, you want to buy NEAR. And let's say there's no pair, like nobody's trading this pair. So you send this request to the system. And there's a special agent there whose only job is to know other agents. It can interact with the other agents to trade A for B and B to C and create a transitive swap, collect signatures of the other agents together and make a profit out of it. So in fact, in a single transaction, there could be, let's say, 4 entities interacting at the same time. So, and when this transaction, more specifically in near intents, it goes to the protocol, it's settled in a single block. So with all of the token balances changing at the same time.
Interesting, and that's the part I was gonna be my next follow-up question of, like, I've used Intents quite a few times now, and it is fast. So there's a lot going on, yet it's still happening really quickly. So all of this is all automated. This is all smart contract driven. Is that correct?
Correct. So there are multiple reasons why it's so fast. Let me walk you through this. If you think about this like bottom up, at the bottom layer you have neural network. So neural network, it's sharded and it's very fast. And each block is produced every like 1.2 seconds. And the smart contract that executes this transaction, it can change balances within a single block. There are lower level primitives that we're using to optimize this time quite a lot. For example, when the transaction is made, there is no cross-shard communication. So there's a special function called key, which belongs to the Intents smart contract, and the transaction goes directly to the relevant shard where the settlement should take place. So, and with that, basically, as soon as the transaction lands in the near network, it gets settled in 1.2 seconds. So that's the first level of optimization, like at the bottom level, right?
Yeah.
But then before the settlement takes place, you need to collect signatures from every single participant. And if you do everything in a synchronous way, like you talk to one, to the second, to the third, it takes a lot of time. And like the more participants there are, it could take even longer, like non-linear like time. It's a mess. So the way we solve it, we solve it with a special off-chain system that we call solver bus. So the communication through solver bus, it's done in 2 steps. Let's say you are a user. You would like to swap token A to token C, the transitive swap I mentioned before. So let's say the quote request, it went to this communication channel off-chain, like very, very fast communication channel off-chain. And all of the solvers who are connected to each other, they start sending quotes back to the user, and they start sending quotes back to each other. So one optimization that was done is that together with these quotes, they also send their signatures. So actually each quote, it's an acknowledgement of each agent that they can swap, tokens at a specific price. Only this message is necessary to make the transaction that user asked for. No further communication is required. And imagine that all of the signatures, they are collected in the solver bus during this negotiation process. And once user picks whatever solver it decides to choose, it signs the message themselves, sends it to the solver bus. And at the moment when the message lands, all of the signatures are already aggregated. There is no further communication needed with any solvers. And then the solver bus finalizes this message, sends it to the smart contract, and within 1.2 seconds, all of the tokens change their balances. So it's really, really fast.
Interesting. So basically, let's see if I'm getting this right. So because everybody's kind of on an agreement, like it's like a handshake agreement. We agree to do this now. So as long as when the user says, "Yep, this is the one I want," that you've already made the handshake. You said, "Yep, well, we've made the deal," and now you're honoring essentially that initial thing.
Correct.
Is this something? So you brought up, in other situations, obviously there's a concern of like Mev bots and things like that. Mev is not really on Near, right? We don't have a mempool. Is this though something that can though be potentially front run? Is there concerns about that?
Absolutely. So technically, there are plenty of ways, even on Near, Mev could be done. So to illustrate this, let's say in the example that I described, A2C transitive swap with multiple signatures. Let's say you have a validator that received this signed message with all of the participants, this signed transaction. And let's say this you can say chunk producer would like to create an auction, or like let's say it happens so that like the chunk producers, they participate in an auction to allow let's say bots to extract profit from these intense transactions.
Got it. Okay.
So what could happen? Like the transaction that went into the near intents, it could be completely discarded by these chunk producers. Step one. Second, the body of the message could be extracted with all of the signatures, and at that time you would have 4 signatures from the user and from three solvers that I mentioned.
Yeah.
Then what you can do, you can take and let's say just throw out 3 signatures from the solvers who are participating in this exchange and insert your own signature. If you think that you can make a better trade. So in this case, the user will not be front run. In a way, they will still get the money that they have requested. But that's in the best case. But the solvers who participated in this negotiation, they let's say they have done the hard work to find like this transitive path and so on. They could be discarded, and some malicious player would take the profit from this trade. So that's example one, when the user is not suffering.
Right. Okay.
And in the second case, the user could suffer, like the user's signature could be thrown out, and the user's trade would not be performed, and one of the signatures from the solvers would be exploited. So, and once a message is signed by the solver, it cannot be used twice. It's multiple spend protection. So, yeah, basically technically possible. It's not really happening yet on Near, but when the protocol is being designed, it's an active, it's a security consideration that everybody is thinking about.
And in that situation, though, it sounds like so if the user does get intercepted, right? So their signature gets thrown out. That user's not losing money, right? They're just not getting that swap. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not. So it's more about the profit and loss piece of this for everybody, more so than like my funds are not at risk ever.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Cool. So I brought this graphic up. I've seen this floating around a little bit. I wanted to share as you were talking because I think it does, for me, it does 2 things. One, yes, it's a great explainer of like what's happening, all the steps. It also shows the complexity to some degree as well of all the things that are happening at the same time here. I'd love to just kind of now go maybe one step further and get into a little bit more of the technical piece of this. So from the solver aspect, I know recently there was a solver SDK that was released. That what does it mean to be a solver? Is it just providing liquidity, or is it something more than that?
Being a solver, it's a risky business, I would say. So it's not as simple as providing liquidity. So there could be, like, when you think about solvers, there could be multiple types of solvers or multiple players. I haven't completely classified them in my head, but for example, you could have a project that is launching a token, And this project, let's say they would like to provide liquidity or like provide the markets for their users. And they don't really have a commercial interest. Like they don't want to make money on these trades. Let's say they want to distribute the tokens, or like they want to solve some sort of an ecosystem problem. Let's say they want to make a coin available on all networks. Let's say they want to use Intents as a central place where you can go, let's say from Solana, Base, doesn't matter where, and transfer it, exchange to any assets you want. So it could be a solver like that. There could be a solver that actually has a lot of money, like the second type of the solver, and they can use this money to counter trade users. And then it becomes a very capital efficient way to counter trade. You basically bridge, let's say, in normal AMM pools, you would need to create like pairs against, let's say, stables for each asset.
Right.
If you are a proper market maker, you just like you bridge just like one chunk of stable coins to Intents, and you can trade against this big chunk across all of the assets you have. So, and you would have part of it bridged inside of Intents, and the other part, let's say, bridged, it could be on its X, or it could be traded against or counter traded against Uniswap. But basically, it's like a capital efficient market making machine that really like competitive when it comes to the fees, just because of the all of the software automation stack they have. So that's the second type of solvers. The third type could be routers. Let's say router solvers, which are like analytical engines that are participating in this whole ecosystem, and they just manage to find other players using the same solver bus or multiple solver bus, or negotiating between themselves. They could collect signatures like for the transitive trades to give users what they want. So, I mean, those are just a couple of solver types I mentioned, but let me give you a bit of a more specific example why it's not as easy as providing liquidity in a normal AMM pool. So in the diagram, or like in the sequence description that I gave before, you remember that the user, once they send a quote, the solvers reply with already signed messages. So, and these messages, they could be used immediately for the solvers by the solver bus to resolve users' intent. So, and this process of like quoting and settlement is very, very asymmetric. Let's say there could be, let's say, 1,000 users going to the website and like getting the quotes. Even for a single user, it could be, I don't know, like 20 requests, and maybe they will make a trade, maybe not. But I don't know the exact ratio, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 1,000 to 1, maybe more, of quotes versus settlements. And I imagine it's much more in the systems where you have proper HFT, like high frequency trading agents, which always do price discovery like that.
Sure.
So, but every time you give a quote, you give a permission to basically swap your assets. And like the simplest risk you can think, and of course, this message, it would have some deadline, let's say 20 seconds, 30 seconds, could be a minute, depending on what the user wants. So the first risk is volatility. So the solvers, they need to calculate like how much risk they're willing to take to give this permission for their assets to be swapped. And if they calculate this volatility and like the price action incorrectly, they lose money. And of course, like solvers are always incentivized to give like the shortest deadline for their messages possible, so that they don't have, like, they have less risk this way. But the user, on the other hand, is really slow compared to the automatic bots. So the user might need to take some time to unlock their ledger, to send the message, think a bit about it and stuff like that. So usually it's above like 20 seconds at least. And 20 seconds, it's a lot of time for highly volatile markets like meme coins. Even for majors, sometimes it's really really volatile.
Sure, yes, especially on certain news and everything. So with that in mind, though, like as a solver, is this why some of the stuff is happening off chain so that it can do these calculations? Like why, like where does that part, I guess, fit into all of this? Because this seems like it would be computationally expensive to do each individual time, to do both price analysis, risk analysis, and then give back a quote.
So you're correct. Like it's computationally really expensive to do it. But there are more problems than that. So
Okay.
it's first, like it's not deterministic. So it's impossible to run it on blockchain because there are no deterministic inputs, and there's no way like you can have oracles, on-chain oracles for every single input for your decision.
Right.
So what do these agents do? They go to exchanges, CoinMarketCap, like Twitter feeds. They do all kinds of crazy things, and yeah, they need to communicate maybe actively with each other to discover all of this, and they need to communicate very fast, like millisecond level latency, which is much higher than the block time on any blockchain network.
Interesting. So from there, then as a solver, if I'm going to come online, am I writing all of that logic, or is that like what the SDK is kind of like giving me some guidelines to start to build off that?
So far, we have released an open source version of SolverBot. We call it off-chain AMM. It works in a similar way to the Uniswap pool. So basically, this agent would have two tokens, token A and token B. It would have an internal formula of how it would calculate the price and a mechanism to issue quotes. That's and of course, it needs to know how many quotes are in flight, and it needs to know when the quotes are settled, so it can update the internal balances.
Right.
So yeah, it's similar to Uniswap or to the traditional Uniswap model. So it's easy for people who have never worked with intent-based DEXs before to understand how it works. And it also has a bunch of peculiarities which you have to understand and research before you start implementing an actual agent, which is sophisticated and which can make profit and so on. So this is for educational purposes only. It's not made to make money, of course.
Right. No, interesting. So what are the other pieces of this technology, though, and I think is really interesting, is that it is fully cross-chain, across multiple chains. So with, again, and like some of the examples that were very specific, like the Doge swap was really, so now we're talking about two very different blockchains. One's proof of work. We have Near, it's proof of stake. How is that all fitting into? Is that because of the solvers, or is there another piece of technology in here that's happening as well?
So solvers play a huge role in this because sometimes, many solvers, they do counter trade on the other chains, and they need to be able to rebalance using this like the cross-chain aspect of intents. But of course, like the primary part that allows this to happen in the first place is this cross-chain capability of the intents. And one huge differentiating factor for this is that it supports networks even without smart contracts. So Bitcoin, Litecoin, and so on, it all works with intents. So I guess you want me to talk a bit about Rainbow Bridge and OmniBridge and how all of this is related to like the intents direction, right?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll give a bit of a history of Rainbow Bridge, so that you understand a bit the complexity of the bridging solutions that we have. So Rainbow Bridge was released in the previous bull market, and it's a very sophisticated, decentralized piece of software. It's gone through many audits, and it was kept up to date through the life of Ethereum mainnet and near. Of course, like you cannot just keep it stationary. You need to update the bridge like as the network evolves. And the way it works, like on the high level, it's quite simple. So you, let's say on the Ethereum side, you have a locker. You send money to this locker. There is a special mechanism that monitors that this event has happened, and the new tokens are minted on the other side on Near. So, but to make this process work, first you need to have a smart contract on the Ethereum side. It needs to emit events, when the money is moved into the smart contract. On the other side, to make it fully decentralized, you need to have a special other smart contract that we call a light client that basically continuously keeps track of the state of the Ethereum network. And it could be used to verify that the event happened on the Ethereum network so that it could mint tokens on Near. And the system has to be kept consistently up to date. And of course, it has to work in two ways. So on the Ethereum side, there also needs to be a light client for the Near network. So it was a lot of work which was invested in this project just to make like the Near side and the Ethereum side work together. And unfortunately, like even with this sophisticated solution, the speed of the bridge is not ideal. So you need to take into account like all different finality concerns in the bridge, because it's a decentralized bridge, so you cannot really roll back, let's say, or like reorganized networks.
Right. So like in that example, you are beholden to settlement on ETH and that reporting back correctly and everything else. So you are fully limited by time. Same idea here would be if I were to have a BTC bridge, I am limited by, Bitcoin's finality, which could be much longer than other chains. So, but Intense removes that.
So the credit goes not to Intense, but maybe to step back. So I don't have like a fully structured thought that I wanted to say, but basically cost is a big problem because you need to finalize all of these transactions to keep the light clients up to date. You need to spend time and gas to send the block headers and stuff like that. There's speed, like complexity of overall network. There is a coverage problem because now we talked about Ethereum and Near, but what about Solana? What about Bitcoin where there are no smart contracts? So anyhow, Rainbow Bridge and like the traditional approach to bridging aside, there's a new idea that pretty much every serious player in blockchain space is adopting, and it's called multi-party computation. And multi-party computation is a safe way to distribute a secret key across multiple players, multiple nodes, without disclosing the key itself, in simple words. And once you have this cryptographic primitive, the participants on this network, they can sign messages without knowing the private key. So this is an amazing innovation which became widespread through the blockchain industry a couple of years ago, and everybody is still capitalizing on this. And OmniBridge is one example. So what could be done with such a system? I will not go like in super deep explanation of like every single technical aspect, but having this MPC network signing messages simplifies the job of the smart contract on the other side to verify this event. Let's say you can create an event on Near network. You can, let's say, burn tokens. This event could be signed by the MPC network, and the signature of this network could be easily validated on the other side. There is no need for fancy light clients. All of the smart contracts, doesn't matter which network it is, it's Ethereum or Solana, they look very identical. It's a very easy cryptographic operation. So it simplifies this problem a lot, and you have full control over the finality of these messages. So really, really, really innovative technology. And near intent's idea, it actually, like before it materialized into this like fungible token mechanics, it was built from this idea of MPC and account fi and all of the cool DeFi things you can do with this.
Interesting. So what I guess let's kind of pivot just a little bit here off of that statement. So is there more that then can be leveraged with intents than just the concept of fungible token swaps?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the fungible token swap, it's probably the easiest application of intent-based architecture. And of the chain signatures. Like once you start combining intent-based approach and chain signatures, like we don't know what the limit is, but I want to give you a couple of examples.
Sure.
So historically, in blockchain, a lot of assumptions were made that once somebody knows the private key, like it can be transferred from one person to another, because you don't know if the other person actually deleted the key and stuff like that. So with MPC, it's not a problem anymore, because nobody really knows the private key. It's managed by the MPC network, and the decisions, like who is able to sign the messages, it's made by a smart contract. It's fully verifiable. So using these mechanics, you can implement what we call account fi. You can create an account that participates in blockchain ecosystem in many different ways. It could collect NFTs, it could stake different tokens, it could create voted escrow tokens, soul-bound NFTs, a bunch of different stuff, like recursively borrow money, like without unwinding and stuff like that. And then this whole account, it could be sold to somebody else. So before it wasn't possible. So nobody would even think about this, but now it is. And of course, with intents, we are not even sure like what could be done with intents, like once you have this kind of capability.
Yeah, that's interesting. It really does seem to open up the door for a lot more possibilities of what, again, like just what does it mean to actually do DeFi, and what does it start to look like for different financial products, and just in general, what does it mean to own an account anymore, right? I mean, I think all of those pieces are really interesting. So going from here and going to where it is today, what are you guys are looking at as like the future here? Like, what does the next 6 months of continuing to work on intent start to look like? And is that something that you feel more work needs to be done, or is it kind of in the stage where now it's like who can build on top of it?
So what we have now is the first, you can say, alpha version of intents. It's extremely, extremely simple, like fungible token trading, like the simplest you can possibly make. But there is still, like even in this simple version, like there is a huge roadmap that could be implemented, and people are already utilizing intents in their products. So you can split maybe the roadmap in two chunks. Like the first one is coverage. So intents already supports multiple networks. So intents itself, it doesn't really I would say it doesn't care about networks. Like as long as there is an NAP141 token, it can use, it can trade it. But like how this NAP141 token is bridged, it's a bit of a different story. So there's a question of the OmniBridge, like how many networks OmniBridge supports, how many networks intent supports with a POA bridge. But basically there's a pretty large set of networks that we want to support, and we are not about to be stopped. So there's BNB, there's Yeah, there's like all of the EVM networks. We will probably, like the top ones we will support, like smart contract networks.
Mhm.
Absolutely, because outside of intents, that not that many platforms that can support networks without smart contracts.
Sorry, before you go on. So, is the pieces of intents here, is it contingent on what is happening with the work on OmniBridge as well? Is it a project that has to kind of work in concert?
Absolutely, absolutely. So Intents is one of the stakeholders for the OmniBridge and like the first customers of the OmniBridge itself. So of course, there's the coverage problem that I mentioned. That OmniBridge will be a bit moving a bit slower because the intention of OmniBridge is to be fully permissionless, decentralized, and as resilient as possible.
Right.
And it also, like underneath OmniBridge, it's using MPC network
Mm-hmm.
to make like the bridging fast and resilient. And MPC network, it's also evolving quite fast. So there's a really exciting roadmap on the MPC side,
Yeah.
which OmniBridge depends on, which intents depend on, and with the capabilities of the MPC network, the intents will be even better. So it will have like
Interesting.
more coverage, faster, and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are working closely together to coordinate all of this.
Yeah. No. That's interesting. That's a part I did not fully understand. So that makes so much more sense to me now. So let's kind of wrap up a little bit here and talk about developers and what can they start to do to, whether it's building on top of Intense or whatever else. Like what's there now for developers?
So one obvious way to make use of it is to integrate it into whatever DApp or distribution channel you have.
Hmm.
So we're talking about any sort of swap widget or like a trading widget that exists. If it doesn't support like multi-chain fast asset swaps, intents can improve it. So it could be transparent to the user. Um, I haven't really explained this part well, but intents doesn't really care which network the user is coming from. Like to
Hmm.
use intents, you don't really need to use Near or Ethereum or any blockchain for that matter. So you can create your account using a passkey and authorize transactions using your passkey. So
Interesting.
basically, it's cross-chain from the get-go, and it's wallet agnostic. It can work with pretty much anything. So, and because of that, it's easy to integrate into all of the DApps, mobile apps, wallets, and stuff like that. So for now, the system is really straightforward. So everything is open source. So
Hmm.
smart contracts, all of the ABIs, the website, the main website behind nearintents.org, it's open source, JavaScript SDK, all of the ABIs. And of course, the open source solver as well. So I recommend taking a look. Keep
Yeah.
in mind that the product is rapidly evolving and extending capabilities. So I would recommend joining the Telegram channel with the devs and keep an eye on announcement, on questions, on the community overall.
Do you have that link? We can share that link if you have that.
Um, yeah, let me.
Uh, Well, one other question here with this, and I think this is a really interesting approach to all of this, because it sounds like what you're saying here too is that this is not necessarily, while it's using near infrastructure, it is not just a near project. So I could be running a Solana project and include near intents in there and do swaps and have that across all the different chains. I don't have to be tied to just that near piece of it. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. Yeah. So if you open nearintents.org, there is an option to connect with any wallet, like any popular wallet.
Yep.
Internally, this model is quite common in the blockchain space. So near intents, it implements what is commonly called account abstraction. So inside of the contract, there is basically the account IDs, and these account IDs, they have a list of cryptographic keys attached to them. And these cryptographic keys, they could be public keys, of course. They could belong to your wallet, your MetaMask, your Rabi wallet, your Phantom wallet, your Near wallet. Doesn't matter which wallet it is, as long as it's a cryptographic key. We can validate its messages. And pass keys, of course, under the hood. It also uses like the cryptography primitives that we make use of.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many things that have to come to mind. I think for developers, and absolutely get into the Telegram chat, ask questions. I'm gonna pull up on my screen here so people can see also too. But actually on the Intense site, you're not seeing my screen yet. Hold on. If up here in the top corner, I can go to docs, I can go to the help center, things like that, and I can see all of that. And you can certainly give it a try. And like you said, there's so many different assets here across multiple different chains, a lot of different opportunities to just see what it's like and understand it and get a sense of how this all works. So definitely encourage people to at least just check it out. You don't have to actually swap anything, just to see how it all works and things like that. This is exciting. I really appreciate you coming on and kind of going over this. Where do you, just kind of ending here, if like where do you see this in 6 months? Does this become a just like it's just more and more chains? Does it become into a separate, another product on top of it? How do you start to see all this coming together?
So 6 months, it's a lot of time. So we're moving very, very fast. So, but who knows, like in 6 months, we could still be in the bull market or bear market, but I'm pretty sure like one thing is certain, there will be much more networks, much more features, much more distribution channels. So maybe some wallets that you're using, maybe like the swap widget will be using Intents behind the scene, who knows?
Yeah.
So, by the way, just wanted to say, if you are a developer, and especially if you have worked on or are familiar with the Near ecosystem, there is a bunch of positions open, and we need to solve a lot of pretty cool and complicated problems.
Nice, perfect. People looking for work. I think that's awesome. Devs definitely, and I actually, there looked like there was a job link on the actual Near Intense page, so looks like people can just kind of jump in through there. Very cool. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for spending time. I know you're super busy, but thank you for taking the time today to really break down Intense and OmniBridge and all of that stuff. This was really great. I really appreciate your time.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Folks, that was really great. I learned a bunch of different things. I did not realize some of the things that were going on there. I think I really want people to take some time and encourage you as a developer to check out some of the stuff. It's all open source, like Alexi said. It's all in GitHub. This is something that for just even end users, just to see how this process can go, how fast it actually is really exciting. So definitely give that a check. We have a bunch of things coming up. So down below, you can see there's the hackathon still ongoing. 1 trillion agent hackathon. You can jump into that. There's still people looking for teams. Feel free to jump into that. There's going to be on I believe Monday. There's going to be another kind of like update workshop thing that we'll be doing related around different ideas and topics and things like that. There is still time to work on some stuff. Agents, again, is definitely a product where people are still kind of learning from the beginning. So check that out. Also, if you're looking to build on just Near in general, again, check out dev.near.org. That's all the different resources that are there, connecting to different DevRels throughout the community, as well as the community as a whole. You can jump in through there. And lastly, I think this is kind of the best way to keep up with everything, is our newsletter. Scrolling across the bottom, make sure you are signed up to our newsletter. It comes out each week. It breaks down all the things that are happening in the developer ecosystem with Near. There is tons of great things that are always going on, including we list out hackathons, events, and things like that, but as well as when all these changes are happening. So as Alexi said, they're moving fast. A lot of things are happening. When those updates come out, you'll be the first to know through the newsletter. So make sure you are subscribed to that as well. This was a lot of fun. We have another great DevHub Live coming next week with Asimov Protocol, which I'm really excited to dive into that. Again, look for next week, some stuff around the hackathon. But until then, I'm your host, Joe. This was a ton of fun. And please check out all this stuff and support your local developers. Thanks so much, everybody. And look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.